I'm so sorry. Yeah, I get it. This video topic, it really does suck, and I hate this, but you know what? When people start talking about the Habs and the Canucks on discourse that transcends different social media platforms, it really gets me thinking, and it says, you know what? If people are talking about this, then let's follow the conversation, because at the end of the day, I think I do have a little bit of an opinion to give about this, because when it comes to Montreal Canadiens center Nick Suzuki and Vancouver Canucks center Elias Pettersson, I feel like I'm pretty familiar with both of these guys. I've watched so many games of all of these players, not just on Vancouver and Montreal, but of Guelph and on Vecqua, and in their junior careers too. We have ourselves this discourse going around that is questioning who's better and who's more valuable and all that, and honestly, this kind of discussion doesn't really accomplish anything, but because people are talking about it, why not follow the conversation and make a video about it as well? The first time I saw this pop up was on a Twitter poll a while ago. It was yesterday, I think, where we had ourselves FFS Drouin, who posted a poll, who is better, Suzuki or Pettersson? And the early stages of this vote had a 56% lead to Nick Suzuki over the 44% Elias Pettersson. The majority of people early on were saying, yeah, no, Suzuki's better than Elias Pettersson. They're both taken in 2017. Suzuki was 13th overall, Pettersson was 5th overall, but right now, Suzuki is better. And to be fair, after this screenshot by the Twitter account Habs Fans Are Dumb was posted, we had a whole bunch of other votes going over there. It was 288 votes at a time, where Pettersson had the lead 67% to 33. However, at the time of recording this video, it's evened out a little bit more. It's now 60% to 40. Some of the replies on this Twitter post go over how some fans would take Nick Suzuki any day of the week, how Elias Pettersson isn't good in his own end, and Suzuki is, therefore Suzuki is better. How Elias Pettersson doesn't really play much on the penalty kill, and because Suzuki does play on the PK, hey, he's better. And when I saw this, I had the reaction that a lot of people who are not Habs fans had when they saw this poll. Now, full disclaimer, Canucks are my favorite team, Habs are my second favorite team. I'm saying that when people who are not Habs fans looked at this, they had the same reaction that I had. Are you kidding me? Nick Suzuki or Pettersson, and you're saying that because Pettersson doesn't play on the penalty kill, he's worse? Okay, let's get into that later. We have ourselves another post here. This was on our Habs from a week ago. Let's analyze the top centers of the 2017 draft. Where does Nick Suzuki land? I'm thinking Pettersson is number 1, followed by Hischier, Suzuki. We had ourselves some comments over here saying, you know what, I think Suzuki is better than any other center in that draft. Petey is sick, but he doesn't have the defensive capabilities of Suzuki. And so, I'm pulling out these individual arguments, and I have to pull them out because even though there is an overwhelming response that says that Pettersson is better, there are indeed a good chunk of people who are saying, yeah, Suzuki, he's better than Petey. And I just want to say that recency bias is indeed something to deal with, because even though Elias Pettersson is good, Pettersson had himself a pretty bad year by his standards. Sure, he didn't produce all too much, and he was on pace for about 66 points in the regular season, but he really did not play all too often. Therefore, you didn't really see him all too often. Nick Suzuki, on the other hand, you're seeing this guy score clutch goals against the Tampa Bay Lightning, not to mention the overtime winners and whatnot. He's been absolutely phenomenal, and I'm not taken away from Nick Suzuki and what he has done. You know as well as I do how much I personally love Nick Suzuki. Every time this guy had himself a run in the OHL where he got points, we made videos about that. There are so many videos talking about Nick Suzuki and the prospect progression he has taken ever since he was traded to Montreal. I've been a huge Nick Suzuki fan. But Elias freaking Pettersson, I'm sorry, Habs fans, I'd rather have Petey right now. It's always kind of funny, isn't it, how Pettersson gets looped into these conversations with other Montreal centers. A few years ago, it was Kotkaniemi. Oh, Kotkaniemi is 18 years old, and he's playing in the NHL. He's better than Pettersson, right? And we had this entire discourse that was so big, so wide, talking about these guys, and people were saying, oh, Pettersson is a rookie, but Kotkaniemi is 18 years old, therefore he is better because he is in the NHL now. Even though Pettersson is producing more points, the age factor favors Kotkaniemi, and therefore Kotkaniemi is better. And the fact that it's happening with Nick Suzuki right now kind of tells a little bit of a different story, because, sure, I've pulled out the pieces and I've shown you the arguments that Habs fans are making for Nick Suzuki being better, but don't get me wrong, there's an overwhelming amount of Habs fans saying things like, yo, I love Suzuki, but come on, it's Pettersson. You have the replies to this comment here on our Habs saying, yeah, Pettersson does have defensive capabilities that are very good, since every advanced stat has PD on top of the league in terms of defensive play. Plus, he is produced at an amazing rate since day one. That is not correct. Pettersson is another level above Suzuki. Suzuki hasn't proved he's in the same category yet. Pettersson is also a beast defensively. Here's another comment thread. The commenter says they would have Suzuki over Pettersson. The reply says, I think you're not valuing Pettersson enough. The second reply after that says, hey, ability-wise, I do think PD is above Suzuki, but the way Suzuki steps up in the playoffs is why I have him ahead of PD, and that is so weird, because Elias Pettersson was literally over a point per game last year in the bubble. Yeah, it's not just Suzuki who steps up in the playoffs, PD does too. Probably the biggest point that I could try to make here is that even though you do have Habs fans that are saying, oh, Suzuki's better, I think he's better defensively, I think he's this, I think he's that, I think he's on another level than Pettersson, at the end of the day, you still have so many Canadiens fans saying, look, calm down, Pettersson is still better. The fact that you even have Canadiens fans defending it kind of tells the whole story here, because I can tell you, there isn't a single Canucks fan that I've seen anywhere on any of these platforms saying anything like, okay, well, we should have gotten Suzuki instead of Pettersson, man. Darn it, we really missed on Nick Suzuki. You know what people talk about that with when it comes to Canucks fans? They talk about that with Nylander and Ehlers and Jake Virtanen. They talk about that with David Pastrnak and Jared McCann. They talk about that with Matthew Tkachuk and Olli Juolevi. They talk about that with Cole Caulfield and Vasily Podkolzin. Wait, they talk about that with all of these other guys, but Elias freaking Pettersson is not in that boat, because there hasn't been a player in the 2017 draft that I honestly think should have been drafted ahead of PD. PD should have been 1, PD should have been 2, depending on where you value Cale Makar. The talent isn't comparable, in my opinion. Sure, Nick Suzuki could be really gosh darn good. He could be a 60, 70-point guy at the NHL level, and he could be a penalty-killing beast, and he could continue being more and more clutch in the playoffs like he has been this year. But Pettersson has, in my opinion, displayed more earlier on in his career and has established for himself what I would call a higher ceiling. Like, if you told me that Elias Pettersson, once he retires with 2 Art Ross trophies. He gets the leader in points in the NHL twice in his career. I would be like, okay, yeah, cool. Like, I honestly kind of expect that out of PD because he's so gosh darn good. If you told me Nick Suzuki retired with a few Art Rosses, I would have been like, really? Wow, really good development there for Suzuki. I wouldn't have expected that. Now, if you told me that Cole Caulfield would retire with maybe 1 or 2 Maurice Richards, that's a lot more believable in my opinion. But to me, Nick Suzuki isn't really going to be that 100-point Conn Smythe kind of guy that I think Elias Pettersson could be really soon, too. So, even though I'm a fan of both of these guys, and even though Elias Pettersson is probably my favorite player in the league, the fact that this is even a discussion is crazy to me. And because of how crazy it is, I decided to make a video about it here today because there is nothing better to do than to piss off a whole bunch of people on either side for even entertaining a discussion like this. Because, oh, why would you even talk about this? Pettersson is obviously better. Or, oh, why would you talk about this? Suzuki is my favorite player in the league. Lego, you're disrespecting me and my opinion here. That's not what I'm doing here, man. I'm just talking about what I think. I think Pettersson's better, and I think Pettersson could be better in the long term, but Suzuki is still fan-freaking-tastic. Sure, Pettersson is better in my opinion, but that does not mean that Suzuki is bad. You can still have several good players where some of the good players are better than other good players. Suzuki may very well be a top 30 center in the NHL in his prime. So for me saying that Elias Pettersson is better, I mean, yeah, the story kind of tells itself. There are no Canucks fans going out there saying, oh, we should have gotten Suzuki instead of Pettersson. Or, man, I think Pettersson's kind of overrated, man. I think that Suzuki guy's a lot better. We should have gotten him instead. There's nobody saying that here. And so, I guess, my goodness, we wasted 9 minutes on this topic. I cannot believe it. Talk to me in the comments what you think about Suzuki, Pettersson, not even just the debate, because I know we have a lot of smart people here who watch both of these teams and they know both of these players and they'll comment things that I honestly think are pretty rational. Talk to me in the comments what you think about the bias, the recency bias, and the fan base's perspectives onto who is better or worse, because I think that's a bigger discussion to have. Not just Pettersson or Suzuki who's better, but what people are saying about Pettersson versus Suzuki who's better, because that conversation I think is a lot more interesting to talk about. So talk to me in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. Show us the 99. And bye.